AITA for cutting off my best friend after I found out she was sleeping with my dad. I honestly never thought I'd be posting here, but my entire life has fallen apart over the last few months and I need outside opinions. I, 28F, had a best friend, Sarah, 28F, for 17 years. We met when we were 11 years old. Sarah's family struggled financially. Her mom worked 2 jobs and they were barely getting by most of the time. My family wasn't rich, but we were comfortable. My parents both had stable jobs and we lived in a nice neighborhood. Growing up, Sarah spent a lot of time at my house. My mom would buy extra school supplies for her. My parents paid for her to come on a few vacations with us. When I outgrew clothes, my mom would ask if Sarah wanted them. Never in a rude way. She almost always did. Neither of us ever thought it was embarrassing. At least I didn't. She was my best friend and my family loved her. Especially my dad. My dad always treated Sarah like a second daughter. If she needed help with homework, he'd help. If she needed advice, he'd give it. When she graduated high school, he bought her a laptop because her family couldn't afford one. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Now it makes me sick. As adults, our lives went in different directions. I graduated college with very little debt because my parents helped me. Sarah graduated with nearly $60,000 in student loans. I got a good job. Sarah bounced between jobs for years. I got engaged to my fiancé, Tyler, 2 years ago. Sarah's long-term boyfriend dumped her around the same time. Looking back, that's probably when things started changing. She never openly said she was jealous, but she'd make little comments. If I talked about wedding planning, she'd say, "Must be nice." If I mentioned buying a house, she'd say, "Some people get all the luck." I'd laugh it off. Tyler noticed it before I did. One night he asked me if Sarah actually liked me. I told him he was being ridiculous. I wish I'd listened. The first major red flag happened at my engagement party. About 50 friends and family members came. Everything was going great until Sarah stood up and announced she'd started seeing someone new, not just casually seeing him. She spent 10 minutes talking about how she'd finally found someone who treated her right. It wasn't enough to ruin the party, but it felt strange. Why make that announcement at someone else's engagement celebration? I ignored it, like I ignored everything else. The next year was full of little moments that made me uncomfortable. Sarah became oddly interested in my family, specifically my dad. She'd ask where he was. She'd ask if he was coming to events. She'd ask whether he was traveling for work. At first I thought nothing of it because she'd known him for 17 years. Then one day I caught her staring at him during a barbecue. Not a normal glance. A stare. When she noticed me looking, she immediately looked away. Something felt off. A few months later, my mom started acting differently. She seemed distracted, anxious, like something was bothering her. Whenever I asked, she'd tell me everything was fine. Then one evening she called me crying. I'd never heard my mother cry like that before. I drove to my parents' house immediately. When I arrived, she was sitting at the kitchen table. She looked exhausted. I asked what happened. She slid her phone across the table. "Read the messages." I wish I hadn't. The first message was from Sarah. The second was from my father. The third made me physically sick. Within seconds, I realized exactly what I was looking at. Months of conversations. Flirting, secret meetings, hotel reservations, photos. My best friend had been having an affair with my father. I genuinely thought it had to be fake. There was no way, not Sarah, not my dad, not the 2 people I'd trusted most outside of my fiancé. My mother told me she'd discovered everything that morning. The affair had been going on for nearly a year, almost a year, while Sarah came to family dinners, while she sat beside me planning my wedding, while she hugged my mother and called her Mom. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The next few days were chaos. My father admitted everything almost immediately. What hurt most wasn't that he confessed, it was how little remorse he showed. He claimed he never meant to hurt anyone. He claimed it just happened. As if people accidentally spend a year sneaking around behind everyone's backs. Sarah's response was somehow worse. When I confronted her, she started crying. At first I thought it was guilt. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You've always had everything." I just stared at her. "What does that have to do with sleeping with my father?" She looked away. Then she started listing things. My house, my education, my relationship, my family, my career, everything. She'd apparently spent years comparing her life to mine. Years. The friendship I thought we had wasn't the friendship she experienced. While I saw us as equals, she saw us as competitors. She told me she was tired of feeling like she always got my leftovers. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the same girl who spent Christmases at our house. The same girl my parents helped whenever they could. The same girl I considered a sister. I asked if she loved my dad. She laughed, actually laughed. Then she said something that haunts me. It wasn't really about him. I felt cold all over. If it wasn't about him, then what was it about? She didn't answer. She just cried. I left. A week later my mother filed for divorce. I supported her completely. The fallout was brutal. My dad moved into an apartment. Half our family stopped speaking to him. Sarah became public enemy #1 among our mutual friends. People picked sides. The entire situation exploded. Then things got even worse. One of Sarah's friends reached out to me. She said there was something I needed to see. Apparently Sarah had been venting to her for years. Years. She sent screenshots. Dozens of them. Messages dating back almost 4 years. The more I read, the more sick I felt. Every major milestone in my life had triggered resentment. When I got engaged. Of course she gets a perfect guy. When I bought a house, some people have life handed to them. When I got promoted, meanwhile I can't catch a break. Then I found the message that completely shattered me. Sarah had written, "I've spent my whole life wearing her hand-me-downs. For once I wanted something that was hers." I just sat there staring at my phone, because suddenly everything made sense. The affair wasn't about attraction. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even really about my dad. It was about me. She wanted to win a competition I never knew existed, and my father was selfish enough to let her. At that point I cut both of them out of my life. Blocked, deleted, done. Some relatives thought I was being too harsh. My aunt actually told me, people make mistakes. Maybe, but affairs aren't mistakes. A wrong turn is a mistake. Sending a text to the wrong person is a mistake. A year-long affair requires thousands of decisions. I wasn't interested in excuses. For a while I wondered if I was overreacting. So, AITA for cutting off my best friend after I found out she was sleeping with my dad. Update. It's been about 6 months since my original post. A lot has happened. First, my parents' divorce is almost finalized. My mother is doing surprisingly well. Honestly, better than I expected. She joined a hiking club, started traveling, made new friends. For the first time in years she actually seems happy. As for my father, things didn't work out the way he expected. About 2 months after moving out, Sarah moved in with him. Apparently they decided to see where things went. Everyone knew it wouldn't last, including me. The entire relationship had been built on lies and resentment. What could possibly go wrong? The answer, everything. 3 months later they broke up. Spectacularly. And that's where things get interesting. One of our mutual friends called me after it happened. According to her, Sarah discovered that my father had been messaging another woman. The irony was almost unbelievable. The man she helped cheat on my mother was now cheating on her. When Sarah confronted him, he reportedly told her she was overreacting. The exact same thing he'd told my mother. Poetic justice, I guess. After the breakup, Sarah started reaching out to people, including me. At first it was texts, then emails, then handwritten letters. Most of them were apologies, some were explanations. One stood out. In it, she admitted she'd spent years resenting me, not because I'd done anything wrong, but because every time she looked at me, she saw everything she wished she'd had. A stable family, financial security, opportunities, support. She said she'd convinced herself that I didn't deserve any of it. That life had been unfair. That taking something from me would somehow balance the scales. Reading that letter didn't make me feel better. It made me feel worse, because she wasn't some cartoon villain. She was a deeply unhappy person who allowed her bitterness to consume her, and in the process she destroyed every meaningful relationship in her life. Last week she asked if we could meet. I declined. Maybe that makes me cruel, but I don't think there's anything left to say. You can forgive someone and still not want them in your life. As for my dad, he continues insisting that everyone is being unfair to him. According to him, people should move on. Nobody seems interested in doing that. My mother certainly isn't. Neither am I. The hardest part of all of this isn't losing my father. It's losing the person I thought was my best friend. The friendship I miss never actually existed. The version of Sarah I loved was someone I created in my head. The real Sarah was keeping score for years. And eventually, she decided the only way to feel better about her own life was to destroy mine. So no, I don't regret cutting them both off. If anything, I regret not seeing the signs sooner. And if there's one lesson I've learned from all this, it's that not everyone who's standing beside you is rooting for you. Sometimes they're just waiting for a chance to take what you have. And sometimes, by the time you realize it, they're already sleeping with your father.